This practice set problem that we're solving, exercise 7.6, it's standard deviation. So go ahead, pause the video, attempt it yourself, read the instructions, and we're going to go over the solution for this. So first thing we're going to want to do is make it a public, and then it'll be a double because we want to return a variable that is a decimal, so double, not int. So we have public, double, and then we have a standard deviation right here. That's the name for it, and it takes a parameter that is an integer type array. So we'll call it like this, and now we're going to be inside of this method. Now we want to find the standard deviation of this. When I look at this, I look at a couple of different parts. There's the part that is underneath this division part right here. So a dot length minus 1, the array length minus 1. We also have the average of a, which is our array. So I called it ARR, but we can rename it to a really quickly. So the average of this entire array, all the elements inside of here, it's pretty easy. All we need to do is add up all the elements and divide it by the length. And then we have a for loop, right? Another actual for loop for the summation part, where we have to add equals all of these and have them at the top. We'll have a math power that has this go to the second power with all this squared. And then we're just going to return the square root of that divided by the bottom part. So let's get into it. The first thing that we want to do is make our variable average, because right now we're going to be dealing with the average part for it. So we'll just type average, and we'll set a double average equal to 0 initially. We want our for loop to run through our entire array so we can add all the variables together. So we'll do int b is equal to 0, and we'll run this as long as b is less than our a dot length. And then that should just be like this. It's not a function. Then we're just going to do b plus plus. And then inside of this for loop, since we only have one line, we don't need to have brackets, one of the two. What we can do though is just set our average plus equals to the element that we are currently looking at, ARR, and then we have our b. So we know that b is going to increment every single time. And then once we're out of this for loop, we're going to take our average, and then we are going to divide equals by our a dot length. So the length of a, we just divide it. This is just the entire part for our average. That's all we're doing here. We're finding the average right there. Next, what we're going to do is the top. So for the top, this is it has to do with summation, right? And summation can be represented with a for loop. So we'll do for, we'll have int c, actually we can do b again, int b is equal to 0. And we want to run this as long as b is less than our a dot length. Then we'll just do b plus plus so we can go through every single time. And then inside of here, we need another variable actually. We need a variable to store everything on the top part. So we will just make this top. So we'll have a double top is equal to 0. And remember, the reason why we're doing this part is because summation can be represented with a for loop. Just FYI, just a little refresher right there. So inside of our for loop, we actually don't need brackets because we're only going to do one line, so we'll just do it out here again. Inside of here, we're just going to want to add to our top because it's a summation. It's not an average, so we don't need to do this part right here, but we'll just set our top plus equals to, we have our math dot pow because we want to raise it to the power of 2. Inside of here, we're going to have our a with our b index. And to keep it consistent with our problem, let's actually change this from b to I, just to keep everything consistent. It's not going to change anything because it's just a simple variable name, but let's just be consistent. We have minus, and then we're going to want to do the average. We subtract our average, and we want to raise this to the power of 2. So we have all this, comma 2, and the end parenthesis goes here, and then we can end this line. That's all in this for loop. Then, once we are done, we can simply return the entire thing. So that's just going to be a return math dot square root. We're using the math function here. We're going to pass in our top, and then we're simply going to pass in our bottom, which is the a dot length, and then we are going to subtract 1 from it, and then we can close this off, end this line, and then end this function. Let's submit and see what we get. I have to log in, so we'll log in here, submit, and of course I miss a semicolon, and we don't have a variable ARR. Let's see why I cannot find symbol variable ARR. I guess that's because I renamed it. You don't see where that is. So we have our A here, average, less than A dot length. Oh, here it is right here. So we have to fix that to be A since I renamed it. Pressing submit again. We've passed 5 out of 5 tests. And so that's how I would go about solving this Practice It 7.6 standard deviation exercise.